And onward in this case means closing off our conference with Kat Stoica Ostenfeld, who is talking about a very different part of the life cycle of Write the Docs, which is leading a team. What happens when you move from being an individual contributor to a lead? It can be really stressful, it can be really confusing, but Kat has been there and is here now to show us the way. Take it away, Kat.
No pressure. Thanks, everyone. Before I truly get started, I have 3 disclaimers. One, I have to say this, which is this is not representative of my current mega employer. I am here on my own, based on my own experiences throughout the tech industry. I have also put it there in writing for legal reasons for anyone watching from my current mega employer. 2, I want to just do a very quick technical writer thing, which is defining what I mean by lead here, which is someone who has management responsibility as well as responsibility for delivering the product. Their lead means a bunch of different stuff in a bunch of different companies, but you can also have other titles. You can be a documentation manager. I've been a senior technical writing manager once, and I've even had the title head of docs. So regardless of what the title actually is, the entire point is, what do you do when you have that combined responsibility for the deliverables, but also, very importantly, the team that delivers. And thirdly, I included the word docs simply to increase the chances of this talk being accepted for this conference. But actually, we could just scratch it, and so it's just you've become a lead within the tech industry or in any company, really. This talk is an amalgamation of half a decade's worth of myself, finding myself with those various different, more or less fancy titles and people management. It's from me coaching other people into the position as lead, including people that work as developers, people that are developers and engineers are the same thing, engineers, QA, someone in marketing, and also me going and asking actual adults for help myself. So this is 5 years of shared experience, and the first thing I want to say is everyone feels like this. I could stop the talk right here. Everyone has like this, and not just once, like I think I have it on a weekly basis, to be honest. So also before moving forward for real, I also need to say that while I do this quite a lot, and I might do during the talk, I absolutely love being a lead. Like I love being a lead, I love leading a team. I am currently in a process of potentially undertaking even more lead, if ever I get approached by recruiters, they're like, would you like to move into another company? I was like, well, only if I can manage. And not because I'm weirdly power hungry, I think, but just because some of the things that you get to see brought to fruition as a manager are great, but I'm not going to touch upon that a lot in this. I'm going to touch more upon the entire facial expression happening here. So I just wanted to say that up front, though, because it's going to sound like it is only ever the strained face, but it's really good. So putting ourselves into the right state of mind. You, imaginary you, have just become a lead. You've just been promoted within a team or been hired in as a lead. There's the face, yeah. So the first thing you need to know is that, well, actually, this is the premise for the talk. This is why we all do the face, is that people get promoted into leadership positions but receive little to no training. This is universal, right? Like, you are lucky if you get, first management course that is created internally, and then maybe an external training if you're really lucky, right? Which means we all have to learn things the hard way, hence the amalgamation of lots of different people that I've spoken to and a lot of what I've experienced. So all of that being said, the first thing you need to prepare for is the fact that you are going to be bad at it. This seems, yes, we're going to be bad at this. This seems kind of straightforward because most people are aware of the fact that, oh, you're stepping into a new role, so I'm probably going to have some stuff to learn and so on. But the thing that always surprises people, and I say this from experience because this was very much my own kind of lived experience was that being bad at it hurts a lot. And it can kind of sneak up on you because you don't actually necessarily know what being good looks like. So therefore, to everyone who can't read the caption, we're now in a quiz. Are you even good enough to have imposter syndrome? And so the thing that you need to know, having moved from an IC, which is individual contributor, into a lead, is that you have internalized key performance indicators. You are used to delivering deliverables. So whether or not that's writing documentation, whether or not you're an engineer, whether or not you're doing QA and so on, you are likely incredibly good at what you do. They don't tend to promote people that are bad at their jobs into leads. They do somewhere. That's a different talk. But I'm going to assume that you're incredibly good at what you do, and because of that, you have internalized the mechanisms and the thresholds with which you measure your own work, right? But the thing is that the new job means that you have new KPIs. So you're going to be stuck in a situation where you're going to judge yourself by the outdated metrics, because that's what you know. But getting used to the new ones and becoming good at them is a completely different element. And so that's going to hurt for a long time. As a little side note, I want to say people that don't learn the new KPIs, people that keep being stuck in judging by outdated metrics, tend to become bad managers because they judge their team by those metrics. So just, you have to learn the new metrics. Great. The first tip is the meetings equals the work. Because if you look back to point number 1, you've got internalized KPIs, you know what deliverables look like, you know how to make them, and therefore you will say this thing that every previous IC manager that was good at their job had said, which is, I just need to get through all of these meetings so I can get some actual work done. But going to the meetings equals the work. This is a hard thing for a lot of people to get used to, so I'm just going to say it in advance, because it actually slammed me in the face 3 years into being a manager, that, oh, right, yes, this is me doing my job now. So I just want that to sit with you to begin with. Now, I've kept saying that you need to learn your new KPIs, and then you can be sat there and go, but what does that even mean? Because no one really tells you. So I've taken the liberty to write your new job description for you. So I'm just going to share it and then let that sink in while I take a sip of water. Sorry. These are really simple words, but quite complex to actually include. So you have duty of care, which means to the individuals involved, right? You have duty of care to the people that report to you, to the people that relate to the project. And fun fact, you have duty of care to everyone in the company, because most companies actually have a separate code of conduct that they make managers sign, which is if you see anything, you have to say anything, otherwise you're legally liable. This is especially the case in American-based companies. So your duty of care is suddenly very, very big. It's also big if it's only one individual, because duty of care is a heavy thing to sit with. There's continuation of service, which is what a lot of the talks here today have actually been about. It is how do you deliver the documentation. It is also, when you are at the management level, how do you enable the success of the documentation team? How do you present the documentation team? There's a lot of budgeting happening. My face said exactly what I needed to say for that. And then there's also tanking. Tanking is a term from video gaming, where if you play, yeah, there are several nods, which I appreciate. It's a term from video gaming where you're multiple people playing together and everyone is trying to kill the big dragon. The tank is the person that's standing in front of the dragon, keeping its attention while everyone else does what they need to do. So that is now also your job. In order to do this job, you are going to have to learn how to corporate, while also carrying an emotional and cognitive load that rarely gets talked about in management books. A lot of people, myself included, will go out and buy management books and so on in order to try and do as much research as we can in order to prepare ourselves. And a very common factor in them is that they tell you a lot of like, how do you optimize? How do you create a good team composition? But very few of them tell you exactly how much it hurts, how tired you're going to be in the evening, how much your friends and family's faces are going to glaze over when you start talking about stuff going on at work, because you are now a manager, and so people can't relate unless they can relate. So you're going to have to learn how to cooperate, which means having to do everything, everywhere, all at once. This is also part of it being something that is a cognitive strain, because you have to maintain all of your various different hats at the same time. Now, going through them specifically with duty of care, you are now responsible for career growth, which is an entirely different job. Like, it's your job to identify a junior and their situation, or like anyone, right? But let's take a junior as an example. You're now responsible for training that person up into their skill set. You have to facilitate the tasks that they can take on to grow. You have to learn to let go of your own perfectionism and realize when to actually assign them something that they can do as an 8 out of 10. You might be able to do it as a 10 out of 10, but if they do it as an 8 out of 10, that means that they can now grow towards a senior. It's a completely different skill set to what you've done before. You're also very high-key, kind of responsible for their job satisfaction. No pressure. With continuation of service, there's a lot of what I said before. There's project planning. We all know you have various different things coming in at the same time. You have to figure out what to prioritize. You have to figure out who to assign to it. You're also going to have to do a lot of reporting. When Stefan said yesterday that he doesn't believe in numbers because he's a content person, but he's been made to believe in numbers because that's what corporations function by, I felt very seen and attacked at the same time. I have learned to have almost a love-love relationship with Jira, which I never thought I would. But you're going to have to do a lot of reporting. A thing that is also frequently a surprise to people is that you're going to have to do a lot of reporting on what you didn't do, which also is kind of counterintuitive to a lot of us when we move from being an IC into being a manager, because we always want to like, look what I did the thing, look what I did, look how much we did. But the thing is, like, say you're a restaurant owner and your staff keeps telling you that they're understaffed, but every time you go into the kitchen to visit them, everything is spotless, right? So you're like, no, you're not understaffed, like it's running perfectly, right? So instead, what you do have to experience is walking in and there's eggshells on the floor and like everything is burning and like there's no clean dish and so on, because you actually have to see the result of being understaffed. Leaning into that and using corporate phrases like, well, there's an opportunity cost to prioritizing this task. That was a company priority one, but it was a mismatch with the project planning that we had done during quarter one. It's something that you have to actually like build muscle memory of, build confidence in order to show, well, we diverted our efforts and therefore this didn't get done. And that hurts because, again, internalized KPIs. I hope you're all seeing the picture here. And also, as I hope was kind of evident in what I just said, you also have to learn a new language. Because you can't just say, we can't do that. Instead, you have to say stuff like, we're severely under-resourced currently, so we would advise against assigning this task to us if expediency is a high priority. I stole that from someone else, but I will convey this applause to this person, because the moment I heard that, and also there were directors in that room, and they all went, huh, and I went, oh. Sorry. That is a powerful phrase. You are going to have to learn an entire new language, which is a lot. And then also you have to do tanking, which is best summarized like this. This says, I love that one middle management orc who kept arguing with Saruman about factory outputs. Because that's basically what you're going to have to do. You've got Saruman there going, just make more orcs. And you're like, well, actually, we can't. Like, from a like, actually, just like physically, it's impossible. And he goes, just make it work. That is, I want to say, the truest rendition of any tech company I've ever been in. So having to do all of this at the same time is one of the reasons why you're going to be fatigued. Sometimes by the end of your workday or even hours later, because things are going to keep churning in your head. A lot of stuff is not going to make sense. You're going to be tired. If you're working from home, your partner is going to see you sitting down at the same desk, having the same meetings, potentially, but doing an entirely different job. So there can be a disconnect, but we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so that's your job, simple. The first thing you need to also know, well, I've said the first thing, an extra thing that you need to know, and that I really want everyone to take away from this, because this is the biggest lesson that I learned and that I still take with me into situations, and I still go, okay, is the fact that the title walks into the room before you do. You now have a title, regardless of what that is. You are entitled. And from a linguistic perspective, being entitled means that you have privileges and benefits that other people don't. It's really great when you're tanking. Like, that's the obvious part, right? Like, people are inviting a lead into a meeting. You are representing the team. So it's not just like Kat saying, we can't do that and we should do a thing and so on. Like, there's a level of respect and assumed authority that people connotate a title with. So again, great while tanking, not disputing that. Am going for water, mouth dry. The part where it becomes tricky, and is where a lot of people have, how do I phrase this? Where a lot of people have some very hard personal learnings, is the fact that the power dynamic has changed. Especially if you were promoted within a team. You've now gone from being peers with other people to being someone who is management, with a capital M. This is something that I have seen a lot of people not be aware of. It's something where I also sometimes still slip, which is the fact that when people are in any way talking to management, their behavior and mindset kind of changes. It's also why, for the love of God, always when you send a spontaneous meeting invite, write in the introduction, or like in the name of it, what it is, right? Because we've all experienced our manager writing us like, can we have a quick chat? And like your amygdala is beginning to scream at you. So please also take that with you as well. I did consider putting it like in as a tip in one of the slides, but I thought that would be a little overkill. But it is something that you actually do really have to be aware of. I've experienced it personally. I was in a situation where I was promoted into a very fancy title, and while we were having an ongoing discussion about a thing, the UX designer went from going head-to-head with me to being almost silent whenever I said something. And then talking to this person in the kitchen, getting coffee one day, and I like came up to them and I was like trying to talk to them, and I could see them visibly like lifting themselves up and going, actually, and then someone else walked into the room, and they fled. And so this other person was like, what just happened? I'm like, I don't know. And I told this person, and thankfully this was a head of QA who had had the management title for a long time, and went, I know what just happened. You are capital M management now. So that was a hard and deep lesson for me to learn, so I really want you to take that with you. Your previous peers are not going to see you in the same way. I'm rattling on about this because it's a really, really important point to make. And it also plays a part in a different element, which is your opinion becomes decision very easily. So say that you're used to having meetings where you're saying, we want to generate ideas. What do you think we can do for this? How do we solve for automating this issue? And you are maybe used to like kicking off the conversation by going, I think that. But since you're now capital M management, that very, very quickly becomes the decision, right? Like, it's not just you kicking off a discussion necessarily. There will be people there that will be like, well, okay, so management thinks this, so it's now a discussion about how to implement that, not whether or not we should go with that strategy. I see a lot of managers forgetting this part. There are people nodding here that have probably experienced a lot of managers forgetting this part. So that's why I'm spending quite a lot of extra time on this slide, is to really hammer this part home. Also, you have to unlearn under-promising and over-delivering, which is extra hard, especially for documentarians, because of, as has been addressed in several talks these past few days, we are very frequently an afterthought. We are very frequently institutionally under-prioritized as a discipline and underfunded. And so one of the ways that we show the value of what we do is working triple time and trying to present the value of what we do. This works as an IC, except for when it doesn't, because it leads to burnout. But it is something that you have to actually truly unlearn when you're the manager, because whenever you agree on delivering here for the team, continuation of service, but you deliver here, you are socializing an entire company to think that here means here. So when you do that as a manager, that actually creates an issue for your continuation of service, which creates an issue for the people involved, which means you are breaking with your duty of care. Everything, everywhere, all at once. Good luck. The thing is, you can learn and you can become better. I am a fairly decent manager now. I'm also Danish, so I will never say anything more powerful than that about myself, right? So fairly decent is where we're gonna stop. But I wasn't always, and I also still make mistakes. It's a continuous learning curve. But I did build on a lot of stuff in order to get to where I am, to a place where I'm comfortable and confident sharing with you all. So the first two tips that I gave, I just want to reiterate. Your work is now meeting. This was the Barbie movie. You were all supposed to laugh. Thank you. Being in meetings is now your work. Doing the work equals preparing for the meetings, writing notes in the meetings, following up on the meetings, finding various different ways to not say per my last email, and finding various different ways to diplomatically, assertively saying, do your job so my team can do ours. And sometimes you have to do that in meetings. Also, again, in all of those meetings, you have to unlearn under-promising and over-delivering, because you have to have a plausible, realistic bar for the continuation of service for your team. And because you are capital M management, that means that whenever you over-deliver, but you don't necessarily specify that that's what you're doing because of reasons, and here's the reporting on the opportunity cost, that means you're creating a vicious cycle, which creates crunch. We've all been there. You've all had this manager, which is why I'm saying it explicitly. But a few extra tips is there are actual frameworks that you can lean on, which is great. Management books exist. A lot of them are really bad. But there are also some actual management frameworks, and it's okay to quote unquote cheat. Like you can find a framework and use it. I personally use what's called situational leadership, which is actually a pretty straightforward matrix where it parts people, not a person, right, but a person's expertise into a matrix based on confidence in what they're doing and competence in what they're doing. Because you can be highly confident and not know what you're doing, and you can be highly confident and know what you're doing, and then everything in between. And then it provides you with a framework for what kind of leadership to provide to that particular situation for that particular part of the job. This is not a situational leadership talk, so I'm going to stop right there, but I am available for talking more about it. Also, that is something that you get licensed it with an actual institute, and they are not paying me for this talk, so I have to move onward to the next tip now, which is one of the biggest ones, which is find a buddy. This tip was given to me one of the times I was promoted by a director who had done management for 15 plus years, who was saying, find yourself a buddy who is not in your organization, who basically just shit talk. It's not the word she used because she's a bit more eloquent, but find yourself someone that has management experience, potentially someone who's in your actual organization but not your immediate team, because you cannot have these conversations with people in the immediate team for legal reasons and duty of care reasons and so on. But find yourself someone who knows what you're going through, who has these experiences themselves, and lean on them. I want to expand on it and also go, well, find more. Find ones that are at your peer level so that you can go through these epiphanies together and commiserate, but also how dare you? But also reach out to people that are more senior that you know. If you know of a manager that you look up to and you would like to emulate, truly actually reach out to them and go, I am now doing management, and then do the face. And they'll be like, yeah, you're on the right track. And then, like, truly, like, ask them, like, can we, I have a challenge, particularly with this situation, can we talk about it? Because, like, likely that person is going to go, great, I now have someone to talk about stuff with. So find yourself a buddy, and then also stop and reflect often. Because we have a tendency to just get stuck in the cadence, right? We're delivering stuff, we're doing performance review cycles. I didn't even mention performance review cycles, but like they suck. But yeah, we get stuck in the day-to-day of our work, and again, we get tired because we're doing everything everywhere all at once. And so it's very easy to just still feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But in reality, you're building muscle memory every day. So genuinely, remember to stop and reflect every once in a while, like note down your to-dos, because we all get caught up in what our to-dos are, but no one really talks about their own to-dos. But make sure to actually allot time to go, well, what have I actually learned? What do I now feel confident and comfortable with? And what do I need to build muscle memory in, even though I hope I might never actually have to? So those are my tips. Just to repeat real quick, the meetings equals the work. Unlearn, for the love of higher powers, under-promising and over-delivering. Find yourself frameworks. It's okay to lean on them, even as you get more experienced. Find yourself a buddy or more, and stop and reflect often. So this is where I gradually start like handing over to Abby so she can come up here and do a Q&A. But meanwhile, I want to say I volunteer as buddy. This is my LinkedIn, and this is my QR card for LinkedIn. So if you ever do want to talk management, if you want to hear more about frameworks that I use, or if you want to talk about a particular situation, I'm here for it. I will leave you with my own personal mug and emotional support dumpster fire. This mug says, you are doing enough. It is going to be okay. I drink from it at least once a week during my meetings. And when I'm in leads meetings with other leads, I particularly tilt it so they can see it as well. And then my emotional support dumpster fire, which says, it's fine, I'm fine, everything is fine, was given to me by someone who had reported to me for 3 years at that point. And we can glean from that what we want. Finally, you've got this. Thank you. Who I am.
Wow, that was so awesome. That was really, really great.
I want to know what that AI query said about like whether or not you can die from a stroke because you're so nervous.
I didn't check. I find myself going to Murderbot and saying you're not having a heart attack, and then saying breathe. You can breathe in crystal air.
Okay. We're breathing.
Okay, we're breathing. There you go. Yes. No, that was a really, really great talk. I really enjoyed that. I think we all really enjoyed that. There are, of course, a ton of questions that I have, that other people have. I'm going to steal privilege with the first question and say, words of power, tell me yours.
A power?
Yeah, like the phrases that you used about how we're not doing that. Do you have any pet phrases you use in management speak that are particularly useful?
I believe this outcome was identified as a plausible risk earlier in the process.
Oh, yes, preach. There you go. Right, on a sort of moving to more serious questions. So how do you feel about not being primarily a writer? Do you miss it? And how do you deal with the emotions around the loss side of?
So, full disclosure, I've known I wanted to be a manager for a decade.
Okay, good.
Ever since I had a job where they didn't pay wages on time. And someone asked, like, hypothetically, if you hadn't been paid for 3 months, what would you do? And for reasons, they were kind of reporting to me at the time, even though I didn't have the title and I definitely didn't have the wages. And so I told them, like, as your friend and colleague, burn it all the fuck down. Sorry for swearing, but that is what I said. But as the person who's apparently your manager right now, give me a day. And then I marched into one of the director's offices and told them that that was inhumane, to put that on the humans involved, and that the tears that were streaming down my face was not me being hysterical, it was the fact that I was having a very human reaction to a very inhumane situation. And then I went over to my colleague, who immediately got up and, like, turned me around and grabbed my coat and, like, went over to the coffee shop on the other side of the road, where I immediately, like, put my head down and, like, banged my forehead into the desk and went, I never want to do that again, but I think I have to.
Okay.
And then I was like, I think that's manager stuff. So full disclosure, to answer to the question, like, I have known that I wanted to be a manager. So I want to say I don't actually miss writing, but I do still try and sneak it in whenever it matters for continuation of service. So I try and find very, very specific moments where I contribute in ways that don't over-deliver. So particularly I do edits for the juniors that I have to help upskill as part of my duty of care to them. Or if there's anything that the team has to deliver that very, very specifically could benefit from my expertise. So I try and be very surgical with applying myself, full stop.
Okay, there are so many questions and so little time, but the other question that a lot of people have asked for, including me, is how blurry is the line between being a leader and being a therapist?
So imagine everything that your manager knows about you, right? They know, like, if there's something going on at home, they know if you're currently suffering from any kind of condition, they know whether or not you have issues with Jonathan or from accounting on a personal level and so on. And so one of the things I was talking about with regards to there being an emotional load is you're now the manager, so you know this about everyone reporting to you, and likely also a lot of your colleagues, because you can only talk to each other about stuff. So genuinely, the person who gave me the emotional support dumpster fire, who doesn't report to me anymore, but we still have weeklies, we now just call them our weekly therapy sessions. So you ask how blurry, and I want to say, well, it kind of comes down to how personable you are. Also a reminder, there's a difference between being personal at work and being personable. So you can kind of try and set that line yourself, but it will naturally also blur because a manager is instinctively and intuitively someone you share a lot with.
Okay, that's a great answer, exactly as difficult as I'd expected it to be.
It's hard, y'all.
So we are moving toward the close of conference, but I know we want to get the unconference people to come downstairs and join us for the final closing speech. I'm presuming that someone in the audience who knows is telling me whether that's going on. Is that going on?
There's a thumbs up down at the end.
Okay, so are we ready to go on to the next stage, which is the closing? At which point, I would like to say thank you, Kat.